On the news, you could see everyone has to stay home. And I'm like, well, the streets is home for me. Domestic violence, it's something that I've always known growing up. So there's just always a lot of, shouting and, things that kids shouldn't have to see sometimes. I was bullied during that time as well in primary and secondary school. So it was just like going to school, being bullied, and then going home and that type of stuff. It was just like back and forth trauma. My illness is fibromyalgia, basically a disorder in like the central nerve system. So it affects your nerves, your bones. You're just in pain 24/7. So it can vary from still being in pain, but managing like the way I am now. And then other days it can vary to being bedbound or even being in hospital because you can't move. Unfortunately, I lost my job in September 2019 due to fibromyalgia. That was when I had my first suicide attempt. I've always said to myself, I'll be out of my situation trying to manage my mental health by summer 2020. And that didn't happen because the pandemic has messed up everyone's plans. I just didn't like winter because my dad would like be more angrier and that type of stuff. December, that was my kind of last Christmas at the house. I went to my best friend's house at the time. I was couch surfing with him and going to college. And then I heard pandemic, and then I was like, oh no, it's grand. It's gonna only last probably 2 or 3 weeks. It's grand. That was the worst advice I gave to myself because I had to leave his house in March, and yeah, I was homeless from there. It was March 2020. On the news, you could see everyone has to stay in their 5K, everyone has to stay home. And I'm like, well, the streets is home for me. I can't really stay in the 5K because I have to move around. A lot of people thought I was like a student worker just because I tried to keep myself presented well because I was still going to college at the same time, and I just didn't want people to find out. I changed hostels because I got hopped. I was the only black person in that hostel, which shouldn't matter, but I got beaten up. It was just very traumatizing because it reminded me of being beaten in primary school, then being beaten at home, then being beaten in a hostel again. So I ended up on the streets again. I guess like one of the places I stayed when I was homeless was like around here, and I wasn't the only one around here as well, so like you kind of have to be a bit careful. Like there was other places I stayed in, but Phoenix Park was just closer to college. The only thing good that came out of the pandemic is me and my boyfriend. In April of last year, we connected on a dating app called Bumble. It still comes as a shock to people because I'm not really that type of person to date people, never mind go on a dating app while homeless. Basically opened up to him about my life. I guess I kind of did that kind of like in a therapy kind of way, and he was just very understanding about that. So this is kind of my memory box for me and Brian. I have a newspaper article. This is us. I'm so happy about it. I feel like that's us. I think the theme was dating and relationships during the pandemic. In spite of the pandemic, I still would have become homeless, but the supports would have been easier. I got out of homelessness in September 2020. At the moment, I'm not eligible for any social welfare because I'm a student. I have to now consider dropping out of education to be eligible for social welfare payment, whether it's job seekers or anything, and keep my housing or pursue my dream career but become homeless. That's basically my dilemma at the moment. I've chosen to stay in education